Today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious and super easy turkey and potato puffs. Before I get into the recipe, I want to say thank you for joining me. I am Gian, and also if you're interested in making this recipe, I will have the recipe linked below in the description box, so be sure to head on down there. It's just right underneath the video, and it's going to lead you over to my blog giancancook.com, and there is where you can print the recipe, save it, pin it, whatever you need, but it's all there. So to get started on the recipe, I am cutting up my onion, ginger. I am grating this finely, and I'm also going to cut a potato. I'm using Yukon Gold potato, and I like this potato because as it cooks, it holds its shape and it's not going to become mushy. And once I've peeled the potatoes, I am just going to dice it into really small pieces. You want it to be relatively small because I don't want big chunks of potato in the patty. It needs to mix in nicely with the meat. And as I was making this video, I realized how dull my knife was, so I had to quickly stop in between and give it a good sharpening. And I'm just going to place the potato into a little bowl with water. I like to do this because it prevents it from oxidizing and, just to rinse off any residue that might remain on the potatoes as well. The next step is to brown the ground turkey, and I've added just a little bit of oil, and using my spoon, I'm just going to try to break this up into pieces like this, and then I'm going to add the onion. Once the onion has sauteed for about 2 minutes or so and it's beginning to soften, I'm going to add the spices, and this is black pepper, turmeric, cumin, and red pepper flakes. And at this point, you also want to add the garlic and the ginger, but you guys, I forgot. You're going to see me add it later on. I'm also adding some salt to the meat. Next, I'm going to add the diced potatoes and stir it around a little bit. Then I'm going to add water. You want the potatoes to cook. You want it to be tender before adding it into the puffs. As you can see, I am now adding the ginger and the garlic. And I'm going to lower the stove and cover the pot and allow this to cook for about 15 to 20 minutes, just until the potato is nice and tender and you can break it apart easily when pressed between your fingers. Now that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I am going to remove it from the heat and let it set aside. The next thing I'm going to do is add some fresh cilantro. And you guys, I store my cilantro, my herbs, cilantro, parsley, such in the fridge like that in a jar with some water. And I also place a little Ziploc bag, cover the leaves, and this makes the herbs last about 2 weeks, if not more. And I'm just going to add the chopped cilantro, give it a stir, and let this cool completely. Once the filling has cooled, it's time to get started on the easier part of this dish. And the first thing I am doing is to make an egg wash. And I'm going to do that by separating the yolk from the egg white. And this is the method that I use. I find it to be very, very easy. Now, once that's done, I am just going to add some water and give it a good mix. I am going to use this egg wash to seal the pastry, and I'm also going to use it to brush the outside of the puffs so it's nice and golden brown once it bakes in the oven. Now, what makes this different than the regular patties that I make is that I am using puff pastry, and you can find this in the frozen section at your supermarket. Follow the instructions on the box in regards to how to thaw the dough. After rolling out the dough a little bit on a floured surface, I'm going to use my pizza cutter to cut it into 9 equal pieces. Next, I am going to place the filling into the center of each of the squares, and you want it to be fairly generous, but don't overdo it. The next thing I'm going to do is to use that egg wash, and I'm going to brush all around the borders around the filling. And this ensures that these puffs will be nice and sealed around the edges and everything is where it's supposed to be as it bakes. And I'm going to take another square of puff pastry and just put it over top and just run my fingers around the edges, pressing it down to make sure it's nice and flat and there are not a lot of air pockets. Using the fork, I'm just gonna go around the edges and press it just to make sure it's nice and sealed. Now, once I've done that, and this is optional, you can just keep this as rustic looking as you like, but I kind of like to clean up the edges and I use my pizza cutter, but you can also use a knife. And I just repeat the process until it's done. This recipe makes 18 of these turkey puffs. I'm going to place it onto a baking sheet pan and then I'm going to brush it all around the top using the egg wash. Once it bakes, it's going to have a beautiful color and a nice shine to the puff pastry. This is what the egg wash does. And there you have it. Look at how beautiful and perfect these are. I'm just going to place it onto a baking rack and allow it to cool before serving. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. It's a great entertaining recipe. If friends are over, you can impress them with these turkey and potato puffs. Thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you in the next one.